Hi, everyone. Sorry, I'm short. So I just want to start off first with sharing something that happened about probably a month ago. So we finally had pest control come into our home and just spray for bugs. If anybody knows me, you know that I'm very afraid of bugs. I don't like spiders. I don't like any of that stuff. I'm a bug phobic. So I was really excited to have them over to the house. And so as they were explaining to me where they needed to treat for any pests, I had opened one of the cupboards and had seen what I thought were spices. They were little like things that were like built up. And as I was looking at that, it had been 2 occurrences where I've cleaned out that area and had found these so-called spices inside the cupboard. So as I finally made a mention to him, asking the exterminator what these things could be, he's like, well, I think you may have termites. And of course I'm like, what is this? Why do we have termites in the house? My house is clean, I make sure everything is fine. So we took everything out, cleaned it up, and he sprayed. And so this thing kind of brought into perspective a situation that I've been going through for about a little bit over 2 months. I have been in my own self, kind of without asking any help or speaking about it, just allowing past situations, things to come in to distract me from the Lord. Past sins, things that, expectations that I have in life. And these things have caused me to have an inability to actually seek the Lord and desire Him. And so it was starting to have me have that answer of when anybody would ask me, how are you doing? I would say, I'm fine. Which fine, there's this little acronym that always goes with it that says frustrated, insecure, neurotic, and emotional, which all of the things I was, because these are all the things that were just weighing in my heart, making me feel just so frustrated. Like I'd smile, but inside I was like, oh, nobody asked me how I was doing. And inside people have asked me, but I was just kind of hiding everything because I really didn't want to burden anybody with these things. And so 1 Peter 5:8 says, be of sober spirit, be on alert. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. But resist him firm in your faith, knowing that the same experience of suffering are being accomplished by your brethren who are in the world. So here I am, just swallowing everything all the time, trying to pretend that I'm okay, that things are fine, when in reality, inside, I'm dying. Like, the word sometimes at church can be very hard to hear with kids in the back, or at home, it can be so consuming with trying to keep up with the children that it's, by the end of the day, I just want to relax. I just want to rest, And so, sometimes it can be so far from my mind of wanting to open the Bible and read. And so this had been causing, it'd been festering, kind of like those termites. They'd been hidden in there. They'd been digging these little holes, getting really comfortable. These little things are falling on the ground in my spiritual walk, and I'm seeing them, but I'm kind of brushing them, thinking they're spices. I'm thinking they're things that don't really matter, when in reality, I have something that's just really eating me up inside, and I'm not treating it with the right remedy, right treatment to kill them. And so as I'm not only dying, trying to kill these things inside of me, also my heart, my faith is also withering, because I am now no longer feeling like God is listening, because these whole things have taken up over me, my mind, my thoughts, And so, I'm like dying, and now the word doesn't even seem like life anymore, because now I'm doubting. And when the Lord knows our needs, and even sometimes when we might not say them, He is like right there, just really wanting to listen to us. He's like wanting to hear us. And so I know that He was there just saying, just say the word. Just tell me, come over here and let's talk, And I was kind of quiet in my own little, Lord, I need you. But in reality, I was just like, but I don't want to talk about it, And so finally, a sister noticed that I was in need. She was like, are you okay? And she's like, I really want to meet with you. And I was like, okay, well, let's see what happens. I was really kind of a little on guard because I was afraid to actually let the fumigation process begin, because I know that takes a lot of breaking down and a lot of removing those things that aren't good. And at the same time, it's just like kind of rebuilding everything inside. And so Ecclesiastes 4:9 says, 4, 9, and 10 says, 2 are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. For if either of them falls, the one will lift up his companion. But woe to the ones who fall when there is another to lift him up. So I see this verse as that moment that I allowed this person to come in and listen to what I was going through for the first time. It's like that fumigation process started. Those things that were eating me up were starting to die. And even those words of encouragement, or even just as we're talking about those things that are going on and Bible verses that are coming up in our conversation, it was like those pads for an AED machine were like clear, doosh, and it was like bringing my heart alive, and it was making me excited. It was getting me happy to hear the word again, and almost like the Lord was sitting there speaking to me through her and saying, hey, I'm here. I've been here this whole time. You just needed to say, here I am. And so it really it brought a whole different light again. That one, I don't have to fight these things by myself. 2, that the Lord does hear even those silent things that are in our heart that we may be going through. I don't know what things you may be going through. I know all the things I'm going through, whether as a parent, as a wife, as a friend, or whatever. But the Lord is saying, I'm here. I haven't left you. Don't doubt on me, because I'm here. And so those termites that were in my spirit that were trying to ruin my foundation were exterminated, and I feel like there's a new light and a new type of encouragement in my life and a different type of faith that I feel like, Lord, I can't doubt in you now, because I see that even though I was in need and I didn't really reach out to anybody about these things, you provided the necessary needs to be able to lift little old me up. So thank you.
Praise God. Thank God for what we've been hearing, and truly for the fellowship we have with each other, that we can lift each other up. What I have to share is something similar to what Jess shared too. Last week was a really good week, because on Wednesday there was an event back home related to my sister's engagement. She's getting married in December, so there's a lot of things happening back home, and that just brought so much joy to my heart, even though I was away. Just seeing photos of what was happening back home and seeing my family be active, and all the things that are happening back home made me so happy, and I was on such an emotional high. But then on Thursday, I just crashed for some reason. I looked back into my work and why things weren't moving as fast as they should, and I found myself really hitting a place where I shouldn't have mentally. And the verse that came up, this was through a Bible study, and that's why I say, through fellowship with brothers. In 2 Corinthians verse 7 and chapter 7 verse 6, there's a verse that says, that defines God's ministry as God who comforts the depressed. And that verse was exactly what I needed when I got it. And I thank God that, I have the chances to fellowship with brothers where I can be reminded of verses like this, especially exactly the time I needed. And as Jess was saying, getting closer to God, getting to be with God in times when we feel that things aren't going right. And in that regard as well, there was a verse that was shared with me in the same Bible study, and that's from Psalms 51, and that's a psalm that David wrote after the prophet Nathan comes and tells him that God's going to judge him because of his sin of adultery with Bathsheba. And that psalm is a psalm where I think that would have been the lowest point in David's life. God had, from shepherd. God had taken him out, made him a king. There were years in between of struggle and heartache, and he had seen God work for him. God had, used him to drive out the Philistines and kill Goliath and all this great things that God has done through him. And then he falls into such a great sin. I'm sure he would have been like so sorrowful, so depressed. And you can see that in Psalm 51, where he's truly has godly sorrow in his heart, and he's repenting. But what hit me was not that, but the verse 15 in Psalm 51. In between his sorrow and between all his pain, he says, "O Lord, open my lips so that my mouth may declare your praise." And I was thinking, Lord, that should be my attitude too. Like if I'm feeling down, say I'm feeling sorrowful, say things might not be working out the way I want them to, but if I'm not joyful, for me that means that I'm not in God's presence, because we read in the Bible that in the presence of God is fullness of joy. And if I'm not in God's presence, the best way to get to his presence is by praying that he opens my lips and that I might praise him. Because in his presence, the angels are constantly praising him for how holy he is, how great he is. And if I can seek God's strength to not even mentally say it, but truly open my lips and declare his praises with my mouth, then in spite of where I am, I believe that that'll just draw me into where God is, into God's presence, where I can truly experience his joy and his fullness. And I want that to be true in my life, and I believe that God is helping me get there.
Hey guys, good morning. One of the songs that I like to play often in my car is a song called "'Tis So Sweet to Trust in Jesus." And one of my favorite parts of the song is when the chorus goes, "Oh, for grace to trust him more," which means for me that I not be satisfied with how much I trust Jesus today, but may the days that come in the future, I trust him more and more and more. May that be my goal. So with that as a introduction, I'd like to share from Mark chapter 6 and verse 52. So if I had to summarize what I'm going to share today in kind of one sentence, it would be that I'm learning right now the importance of not just being satisfied that a trial is over or that God has brought me through a trial, but to make sure that my faith has increased because of that trial. Okay? And so the context for verse 52, Mark chapter 6, verse 52, this is right after the time when Jesus feeds the 5,000. Okay, so 5,000 people came, they had nothing to eat. Jesus took some bread and multiplied it, made it for 5,000 people. And immediately after that, he tells the disciples, "Hey, now go across I think it's the Sea of Galilee. Go across the lake." And the disciples are rowing in the middle of the night. It's like 3 to 6 a.m. And then that's when Jesus walks on the water and he goes to them. And it says, actually starting in verse 51, "Then he," which is Jesus, "got into the boat with them, and the wind stopped. And they were utterly astonished." In other words, like, wow, I didn't know Jesus could do this. This is amazing. 52, "For they had not gained any insight from the incident of the loaves, but their hearts were hardened." So I think about these disciples and think about what just happened for these people. They saw this amazing miracle that just happened. They had a trial. They had a problem. How do I feed 5,000 people? And Jesus solved the problem. And not only did Jesus solve the problem, we read at the end of that story that there were 12 baskets full of broken bread. And there were 12 disciples, meaning one basket for each of these disciples. And so not only was the trial solved, but there was also a blessing that these disciples got. And despite all of that, it says about them that they had not gained any insight from that incident. So I think it's easy for me to look at the disciples, and I see them in many stories, and I think, man, these guys are a little slow. I mean, if I saw that, I wouldn't have that problem. But I can take this story and I can apply it to my own life and say, Lord, in the past, haven't you done wonderful things in my life? Haven't you brought me through many different trials and situations? And if so, am I simply satisfied with the fact that those trials are over? Am I simply satisfied with the fact that I've gotten some blessing out of it? But the question is, have I actually gained any insight from it? Or in other words, has my faith increased because of it? So that was the thing that challenged me, because I don't want to have to, every single time that I encounter some sort of trial, and be like, well, I have to start getting anxious. I hope to be able to look back at the trials that I've gone through in the past and say, hey, I've gone through something similar here in the past. God solved it in the past. I don't see why he can't solve it for me again today and bring me through it today and have some more faith. Because I think back to what Brother Zach said a few weeks ago when he shared here. He talked about entering into the rest of God. And it's not just entering the rest. If you look at that verse in Hebrews, it says it's to be diligent to enter into that rest. And it's something that I've kind of been a little slack on, saying, it's okay to be a little bit anxious. But I think what God's will for us is that through the trials that we have in the past, that we really become solid. That through all the trials in the past, we gain some insight. So when we encounter something, we don't have to be shaken, and we can really be in that peace. So that's just something I've been learning this week. So not just to waste the trials that God's given us, but hopefully to really gain that insight and be more faithful and trust him more. Okay, thank you.